Once Upon a Timeline. Welcome. I have to apologize. My voice is kind of bad today. I've had the flu. I'm mostly recovered, but my voice is not all that great right now. Okay, see who's in. Stream status is good. Life Matrix is in, and Autumn Nicole's. I wonder if nobody got my notification, because that's not very many people. Pauline 9 is in. Anyway, only a few people are in. I'm just going to push forward. Okay, so you notice that there looks like a blob of green blood on the thumbnail, if you've seen it. And apparently, yeah, we can have green blood now. I'm going to run through a bunch of them from Bob Bobertson, our regular guy. And let's see. So here we go. Patient shocks surgeons with green blood. So apparently, if you take certain medications now, sounds like my video is running here. All right. If we take certain medications now, including sulfahemo, it can cause sulfahemoglobinemia. So apparently that's when sulfur atoms clamp onto the hemoglobin, and it turns your blood green. So the hemoglobin will not carry oxygen when it has those sulfur atoms on there. They're saying it was migraine medication that did it. Excessive intake of sumatriptan, which contains a sulfonamide group, causes sulfahemoglobinemia. Very weird. So I've never heard of this sulfahemoglobinemia. I was just looking at this last week for colored bloods. Couldn't find anything for humans other than bluish. All right, so symptoms: bluish or greenish discoloration of blood, skin, and mucous membranes. Even though blood count tests may not show any abnormalities in the blood, this discoloration is called cyanosis. I thought cyanosis was just when you weren't carrying oxygen. I did not know this word as meaning a discoloration of the blood. That's what's weird for me. Just meant lack of oxygen carrying. And is caused by greater than 5 grams per cent deoxyhemoglobinemia. Excuse me, voice is not holding up too good today. Okay, so weird. So humans can have green blood now. It is somewhat dangerous. But you probably won't die. Really weird. Spock sickness. You can be like Spock. Autumn Nicole's is in. Not too many people today. Oh, weird. Maybe everybody's getting ready for Christmas. I did not live stream last Christmas, so I have no idea if it's busy or not. Anyway, Silver E55 is in. Welcome. All right, so that's it for the green blood. There was a couple lizards and stuff that also had the green blood now. This colored blood thing is spreading rapidly. All right, this one is more of a history one. I'm not a super expert on history, but Bob Bobertson knows a lot of history, and I've never heard of this. Supposedly Nixon tried to have a reporter killed in this timeline. In my old timeline, all that Nixon had really done was spy on the other side and bug their headquarters and try to get all their info. By today's standards, it wasn't that much considering a lot of recent history. But in this timeline, apparently Nixon was more of a problem child, definitely. So March of 1972, Nixon advisor Charles Colson approached E. Howard Hunt. Feldstein describes what transpired. So basically, they talked about different ways to kill this reporter. Assassinating him to appear accidental, special poison, asking the CIA for help, blah blah blah, and it was at the behest of Nixon. And Nixon really hated this one reporter. Then they kind of had a weird reason why it never came to pass. Let's see. The reason Hunt and Liddy didn't follow through on their plan, days later they were assigned another task bugging the Democratic Party headquarters at the Watergate building. That's the only thing I'd ever really heard that was so horrible that he did, was bugging the Democratic quarters. But anyway, just weird. So let me find the title of this so you can. It may sound crazy, but a president once plotted to kill a reporter. He also did a lot of other stuff to the reporters that fell short of killing them, but wiretapped journalists, put them on enemies lists, audited their tax returns, censored their newspapers, and moved to revoke their broadcasting licenses. I don't really remember too much about that. I guess it could have been there, but I don't know. I'm suspicious. But yeah, I'm quite sure that I've never once heard that Nixon tried to kill a reporter. Let's see. PSO stopped in and leaving already. That's cool. I understand. It's late. I'm actually usually asleep by now, but this is the only time that I know I can be here every week, so that's why I do it now. Like you said, you can always catch it on the replay. Joshua Vencedor is in. Silver E55. Welcome, welcome. All right, so that is the Nixon tried to kill a reporter one. All right. I almost put this one on the front page. These giant frogs. They're called Goliath frogs. I have not seen any frogs this big. Here is a brief clip of them. This one also was by Bob Bobertson. He had the Nixon one, the green blood. This one, he's got a lot this week. All right, so they have these monster frogs now, apparently. They're like 8 pounds. Never seen any that big. I just thought they were interesting. These been known for a long time. This is quite an old video, actually, supposedly. It's from 93. So this is not a new thing. But yeah, I never saw any frogs that big. All right. Oh, there's my image of the green blood. You can see I'm a little less prepared than normal today. All right. All right, more pyramids. Pyramids have been showing up all over. China, Mexico. Not just the regular step pyramids in Mexico, but other ones. So apparently there's these Nubian pyramids in the Sudan. Few visitors make the trek out to Sudan's secluded Nubian pyramids in ancient Meroe, the capital of the Kingdom of Kush. Yeah, I never heard of anyone. Where the Nubian pyramids happen to be black. It's kind of cool. At least some of them are. Of course, everybody forgot about them. Supposed to be built a little after 800 years after the Egyptians stopped building their pyramids. More than 50 ancient pyramids and royal tombs rise out of the desert sands at Meroe. They're kind of small right now, but keep an eye on them. In my experience, new stuff starts out small and gets larger. So don't be surprised if we'll see more, better, cooler, and larger pyramids coming down the chute on these ones. Not a lot of info on them. Not sure why they're different colors here. I mean, is this repaired or what? The area sees few visitors. Oh. A visitor's permit costs $10 acquired to visit the pyramids. Some old writing and stuff. Anyway, cool. No is in. Hello. All right, next one. All right, this one you've probably seen if you've been keeping up on the news. I knew someone was going to bring this up. The person who mentioned it was Keel 1. Surprised there was only one person who mentioned it. This is an interesting one. I'm curious to see how it develops. Okay, did not find the original link here, but we'll just go with whatever. Alright, so these monk seals have been getting these eels stuck up their nose. Now, I've never heard of this. Suddenly it's everywhere, though, this image of this seal with an eel in his nose. Supposedly, this was first discovered 2 years ago. Sometimes the eel is so far in, only a little bit of it is still sticking out. And they said they pull it out and out and out and out and out. They can't figure out why this is happening. There's no real good answer to it currently. I have a feeling that we will see the answer in the next year or so. There have been 3 or 4 reported cases. Most recent occurred this fall. Eels removed successfully. The eels do not survive, but the seals are fine. We have no idea why this is happening. Blah, blah, blah. So, anyway, just a really weird story. I'm really curious how this one's going to develop. I think we will find out more. This will morph. So, keep an eye on it. It may take a few years, but I think we'll see some. So that was by Keel 1. Alright, this is a really disturbing one. Birds are so aggressive in this timeline. This is a weird one that they're saying that seagulls might be killing whales. Apparently, I've never heard of anything like this before. The seagulls are pecking away at the flesh of these whales when they come up for air and just basically attacking them, slashing them open over and over again. They call it nibbling here, but they're actually described it fairly as pretty nasty gashes. Creating wounds up to 4 inches deep and 5 feet long. Each time the whale resurfaces, gulls dive towards its wounds to tear off pieces of blubber. The seagulls attack the skin first and then the fat of the whales. They peck several times at each attack. Then the whale submerges, and when it comes back to the surface, the gull is there waiting. So apparently they like to target calves. So there's a theory that maybe they're contributing to the death of some whales due to these violent attacks. Let's see. So in 1970s, only about 1% of Argentine right whales had gull-inflicted wounds. That number swelled to 38% in 1990, 68% in 2000, 77% in 2008. They're blaming on the booming gull population. I don't know. I don't really buy that, but I mean, whatever. I've never heard of such a thing. Absolutely just never heard of it. Not in 2008 and not last year. So anyway, yeah, aggressive birds are nasty in this timeline. I showed that video a while back of that parrot that would attack the sheep and eat its back fat while it was trying to graze and stuff too. Just a lot of that in this timeline. All right, more history. Okay, so those nasty whales, that was Bob Robertson, and this is another Bob Robertson one. I don't know if any of you guys live in the DC area, but I've never heard of this. This timeline had a lot of violence in the past. This is one example of it. 40 years ago, terrorists took over the DC Council and shot Marion Barry. This guy's pretty famous. I've just never heard of it. I haven't heard of any of this stuff. Thursday marks 40 years since a group of men stormed 3 landmark buildings in D.C., held nearly 150 people hostage, made a series of demands ranging from the mundane to the lethal, and nearly killed Marion Barry. At the end, 2 people were dead. It's known as the Hanafi siege. So apparently this guy, Hamas Abdul Khalis, founded the Hanafi movement. He had some kind of beef with this and that people. It's kind of a long story. You can read the thing. They were supposedly, what was it? Oh, no, that wasn't the one where they were anarchists. That's the coming up one. So he wanted some various things like some money for some fees he had to pay out, and he wanted them to stop playing this movie he didn't like, and just weird. But I've just never heard of that. I mean, hostage things were just really rare when I was a kid. The Iran one was just like so unusual, and now apparently stuff like this happened all the time. I'm having trouble getting over it. Anyway, I don't think so. I do not believe that happened in the 70s. Let's see, when was it supposed to happen? In 77. Nope. I mean, I was old enough to have heard about it. Okay, here's another one. We talked before about all the hijackings that supposedly happened in the 60s and 70s. Apparently, there was a gajillion bombings around then, too. Actually, a little earlier than that, though, but still weird. So they're saying we just had bombings all the time. If you have any of your, maybe if you ask some of your grandparents or grandparents. I've just never heard of this, but I've just absolutely never heard of. This one is even weirder for me. I guess I could see one event might have happened I didn't know about. When bombs besieged New York City in early 20th century, U.S. explosions once common. It's the most intense period of American terrorism you've likely never heard of. This is a very common phrase used in Emmy land. You probably never heard of, you likely never heard of, you didn't even know. They know you didn't know of it because it wasn't there before. At the turn of the 20th century, bombings were a fixture of urban life in America, with frequent violent incidents reminiscent of Monday's Boston Marathon attack. You would have actually been a lot more accustomed to bombings in New York 100 years ago. So supposedly there was bombings all the time. A lot of them were by these people called anarchists. I guess they wanted anarchy. I I've never heard of an anarchist specifically as a political idea. So apparently they just kind of believe that there shouldn't be any government, or there should be small self-policing groups. There shouldn't be like a whole hierarchy or anything. And those are anarchists. They sound a lot like libertarians, maybe like an extreme version of libertarians, but supposedly the anarchists were left-leaning, whereas libertarians are usually right-leaning. You probably have to check at Google and see if you can really understand the difference. The handbills found near the 7 explosion sites in June 1919 were signed by the anarchist fighters. They're talking about all these different bombings that went through. In 1919, coordinated time bombs went off in 7 cities, including New York, where a bomb was placed in the vestibule of a judge's home at East 61st Street. A blast could be heard from more than a half-mile away. Soon after the explosion, men, women, and children rushed into the streets. It was executed by left-wing radicals, particularly anarchists. I've just never heard of any of this stuff. Terrorism in the early 1900s also resulted in significant new governmental surveillance policies. 1 month after the 1914 bomb, likely aimed at Rockefeller, New York, created a secret policing unit that sent undercover officers to infiltrate radical groups and act as agent provocateurs. Jones compared this to reported thwarted terrorists since 9/11, which have also relied on undercover officers. Anyway, never heard of any of this stuff. Alright, anyway, it's just weird. Joshua Vencedor. Oh yeah, about the rainbow deer. I mean the albino deer. I'm like one day behind on the comments. Sorry, I'm spacing out. It's cold today. So I did kind of see that one, but I haven't really gone through and checked everybody's links and stuff. I caught up to about a day ago. So some of this stuff I was going to probably just cover next time. Sometimes my brain just gets fried. I can't get it all done. The albino deer, I think I covered that in the past. There's a whole freaking herd of those things. It's definitely an Emmy for me. Let me see if I can... Last time I checked, there was a herd. I think it was up in New York or something. Seneca white deer... Oh no, they're not albino. They carry recessive genes. When the 10,600 acre depot was created, 25-mile fence was erected, isolating a small herd of white-tailed deer, some of which had white coats. So supposedly now there's this whole herd of deer that a ton of them have white coats. So, yeah, there's some of them. Let's see if I can get it. Some of the guys. I saw that last year. So, yeah, I would say it's new for me. See, in the latest letter from Homeland Security, they are instructing Americans for the first time ever to get armed 6 months of food. All right, let me just see if that's... I see something for FEMA. Chain stored food and water supplies every 6 months. It's not 6 months supply. Not really finding anything. Let's see. You just got it. Some of these internet things. All right. Okay, here we go. This might be it. Americans need to start prepping for up to 6 months without electricity. All right, so they're saying it's because of the electric grid. You should be prepared for a power outage of up to 6 months. Have enough supplies for a minimum of 14 days. Right, I don't see anything about being armed, but if you're going to have 6 months without food, you better have arms, obviously. Otherwise, people that do have them will take your food. Interesting. Although I have to say, you know, a lot of stuff that they try to scare us with just never comes to pass, so I don't know if it really means anything. I don't know if you remember, but when I was a kid, they said we'd be running out of oil by now. The ozone layer would be gone, and we'd all have skin cancer. There was a bunch of stuff like that. All these animals would be extinct. Well, none of those animals are extinct. We have plenty of oil. We don't have any new... actually, the ozone layer has cleared itself up for the most part. It's not as bad as it was, blah, blah, blah. So, I don't know. I just don't freak out about that stuff anymore. Even need to change her time shows. Yeah, you mean like make it earlier? You don't remember? You were born 69, yeah. Yeah, I don't remember that 77 one at all. I mean, the 100 years ago one, you'd think you would have heard about it if there was massive terrorism and bombings already. But I just remember, you know, recent bombs, they'd be like, oh, this is the worst one ever. And they didn't say, oh, 100 years ago it was way worse. I've never heard that. Angela Ritter, welcome. Keokuk Monty, Creek Mary 1. Anarchists used to be in cartoons, long beards carrying little round bombs with fuses at the top. I have never seen that. Did y'all see Monopoly Man in the background of live Congress coverage today? Oh, there was another one. Did he have the monocle? Yeah, monocle or no? That's somebody else asked too. Kyoko Kumade. The biggest question of the hour. Did he have a monocle? Giant fake white mustache. No monocle. You know, the last one had a monocle. Maybe they're trying to erase the mistake of the last one. They had that last guy that was... who was he making fun of? Somebody he was behind somebody. He had the monocle, and all the Mandela people were freaking out. The midget deer. Midget deer. Let me look that one up. I think I saw that one, but I'm not sure if I've reported on that one. There was a super tiny little deer. Dwarf deer. Weird dwarf white-tailed buck. Huh. Yeah, you know, that's interesting. You don't usually hear humans have dwarfism, but I've not heard of animals having dwarfism. I mean, you don't have a herd of cows and then suddenly you have a half-size cow. I mean, not unless you bred for it. Dwarf deer. All right. So that's what they're calling it. See if we can get any decent images of it. No way, is that it? Look, it's got little short legs. Oh, weird. Are you serious? Look at that. Oh my God. Looks like a little pig or something. Somebody's been having fun with Photoshop. Wow. Dwarf deer. So it's got little short legs. Most said fake, but there are a few believers. Could be achondroplasia, defective conversion of cartilage into bone. Another said real. I have seen one like. I should be back on now. Hopefully I didn't you didn't miss too much. Just talking about the weird dwarf deer. I was showing images of the dwarf deer. This was the last one I showed. All right, let's go back to all. All right, so there's people asking about the dwarf deer story. All right, this person was claiming to have seen one. All right, so people are saying they're out there. I don't know. Anyways, don't know. Like my stream looks good now anyways. Divided We Fall has made it. Welcome. Dead GPK. All right. All right, so there, let's see, where are we at now? This is another one by Bob Robertson. All those last ones were by Bob except for the monk seal. That one was by Keel. All right, this one is really weird. I can't remember if I covered this or not. It seems vaguely familiar. So the story is that in order to attend Harvard for many years, they would take nude photos of you. And you had to do that. 1940s through 1960s and even up through 1970s. It wasn't just Harvard. Yale and Princeton also. on some of the female schools, such as Radcliffe and Wellesley. All of these. So one thing interesting is that, a lot of current presidents or past presidents, George Bush, Hillary Rodham Clinton, Nora Ephron, and actresses and stuff, others all supposedly would have had to do this. The story now is that they did this because they were doing research to see if your appearance was correlated with your intelligence or personality, is the supposed story. Who knows what happened to all those photos. And it's just a weird story. I just thought I'd throw it out there. This timeline is weird. That's all I have to say. And, in that era, when nudity was a lot worse than it is now, it's just kind of hard to imagine. All right, now here's a whole bunch of weird ones. Whoops, I think I wanted it to be here. All right, there's a whole bunch of weird history ones here. Now, the one that Bob Robertson mentioned was this one. Charles Lindbergh was the first man to fly nonstop across the Atlantic Ocean. Not anymore. He was not the first one. He was only the first. All right. I think I've got it back already. Let's see what this looks like. I've been cursed with bad signal. Not receiving enough video, but it is receiving video. All right. Buffering again. Okay, hopefully I'm back. Ah, Cupie's in. Welcome, Cupie. All right, so here's the story. We grew up learning that Charles Lindbergh was the first man to fly nonstop across the Atlantic, and now it's not true at all. The first man now was 2 British pilots in 1919, and there were 64 other people who went across before Lindbergh now. Now, in my timeline, the first person to go across was solo because there was gas issues, basically. There was a limit of how much weight. So the first person to make it was the most efficient person, which was a lighter person and a single person in the plane. But in this timeline, the first people to do it were pairs of people, which is counterintuitive to me because then there'd be a lot more weight. And then it'd be harder to get across. So in my timeline, it was always single people who managed to stay awake long enough. But apparently in this timeline, it was doubles that made it across first. It's weird because there are still some websites that talk about the big spiel about how amazed everybody was that somebody made it all the way across the Atlantic and it was so shocking. And this is all about Lindbergh. But I mean, if 64 other people had made it across already in pairs, then there wouldn't be a big whoop if finally somebody did it singularly. It's just weird. So anyway, that's one out of a bunch that's on here. All right, we covered this last time. George Washington was no longer the first president of the United States because they had other presidents under the Articles of Confederation. And John Hanson was the first president of the United States in Congress assembled now. All right, here's another one. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. Not anymore. He did not invent the telephone anymore. In 1850, more than 25 years before Alexander Graham Bell's invention, a German school teacher named Philip Reyes created what he described as an artificial ear. He linked his artificial ear to the strings of a violin. This device, which he called the telephone, was presented to Frankfurt's Physics Association in October 26, 1861. Although he was able to make it work at distances up to 100 meters, it was not good enough to meet with commercial success. It wasn't until 1876 that Bell filed the patent that earned him the title of the inventor. So Bell didn't invent it anymore. He was a copycat. Let's see. Betsy Ross invented the first American flag. In this timeline, no. She may have sewn it, but she did not invent it. So I think that one's been covered by others, so I'm not going to go into it too long. This one's interesting. Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. Now, it's kind of an older ME, maybe 1 or 2 years old, that a lot of people remember Eli Whitney as being a black man. In this timeline, he's a white man. Now, I thought that was an interesting ME because a lot of the MEs are introducing more females and more different nationalities into the history of invention. But I just thought it was weird that in this case, they kind of made, kind of whitewashed that history versus what I remember. But it continues on because Eli Whitney, although he's now white, he did not invent the cotton gin anymore. In fact, it was originally created in Asia and perfected in Santo Domingo in the 1740s. However, Whitney did perfect the cotton gin to work on slippery seeds of American cotton, and he was the first to achieve a patent. So he no longer invented the cotton gin at all. He just kind of improved it for American cotton and got a patent. A lot smaller of an accomplishment. So not only was he not black, he didn't invent the cotton gin. No, I think this one's an interesting one. I have not really heard this covered. I think I have mentioned it. This is the last one I'm going to really go into on this channel, but Christopher Columbus discovered the earth is round. Now, I wouldn't quite go that far, but I really specifically remember them going on and on about how all the people that were all of his boat hands, his ship hands, a lot of them thought that they would fall off the edge of the earth because everybody thought it was flat then. And I did not remember Christopher Columbus actually discovering it was round, but there was definitely a huge phobia on all the stories I ever read that the earth wasn't round and you could fall off the edge. In fact, there was a lot of talk of attempted mutinies and stuff because his ship hands were afraid he'd sailed too far. But in this timeline, Aristotle proved the world is round by noticing that the earth casts a spherical shadow on the moon during an eclipse. The fact that the earth is round was generally accepted by the time Columbus came along. So all that spiel about the ship hands being afraid of sailing off the edge would now no longer be likely because they knew that the earth was round by then. But, the whole moon and the eclipse and stuff, that's changed a lot for me too, so I don't know. All right, most of these I didn't really know anyways, so I'm not going to really go into them other than that Lindbergh one. That one was by Bob Robertson. I've heard this George Washington fathered several children by his slaves. And I've heard that one recently. They're refuting it again now, saying that he probably was sterile anyway, so it wouldn't have been possible. Hold on, let me get another water. Trying to get my voice to make it to the end here. Anyway, just a bunch of weird ones. I don't remember mud fossils. Yeah, I don't know. That's that new thing. I don't know. I don't think there's much evidence for mud fossils yet, but just interesting patterns do not make a fossil. However, who knows? A few more shifts might be more evidence for it. Jet black clouds. No, I haven't seen any jet black clouds. Not in real life, anyway. Yeah, they found the Lindbergh baby in this timeline. Yep. First radio broadcast in 1906. Yep. Pretty soon the cavemen are gonna have cell phones. Just give it a few more shifts. All right, let me see. Where am I here? Oh yeah, this one. The rap battles of Vikings that history shouldn't forget. It's another one of these weird mentioning about forgetting things. Supposedly, Vikings used to have these weird battles where they would kind of like each other. Last month, team led by blah 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 demonstrated the first heavier than aircraft to fly without moving parts. Their plane creates thrust by using electrodes to generate an electric wind or an ionic wind. So apparently, if these ions flow, they're saying that the ions smack into the air molecules and create a wind. And so then you've got a wind basically pushing you. So you make the ions flow and then it pushes you along. Now what's interesting is that they said that the wind can be like 200 miles per hour. So that's no puny amount of wind. They're also saying this was known centuries ago. Phenomena related to the so-called electric wind corona discharge is first described by Otto von Guericke. He mounted a sulfur sphere on a crankshaft when the globe was rubbed by hand. As it rotated, it began to glow and make noise in the form of roarings and crashings. Then they had this thing in 1750 called the electric fly, which was kind of like a little thing that would fly around like this, like a pinwheel. All right, 1929. Now, this guy had this contraption that worked kind of similarly, but he thought he was somehow influencing gravity, supposedly. 1964, the ionocraft, a direct forebear of the solid-state plane. So this thing apparently was in this 1964 Popular Mechanics and could fly. PM describes it as an incredible magic carpet of the future. Given its lack of moving parts and thus near non-existent maintenance requirements, an ionocraft covered in solar panels could stay aloft indefinitely. That's weird because in 1964, I do not recall anybody saying anything could be covered with solar panels because solar panels were just not spoken of. I don't remember any solar panels when I was a child, and that was after 1964. So I can't I just can't imagine in 64 they were saying solar panels would solve anything. It's weird. Now, weirdly, it runs off the same theory as this ionic breeze, these air purifiers. Now, I've seen these, and I just thought the word breeze was kind of, magical advertising, because there's no breeze that ever felt with this thing. And so I thought, oh, it changes the ions. So the story now is the ionic breeze was supposed to actually make an actual breeze, not just make ion breeze, but an actual breeze. Yeah, first I've heard of that. There's a patent now for ionic laptops. So apparently now, just by moving ions, you can make a huge wind and actually fly using that thing. Here they're using ionic wind to dry slices of wild ginger. Anyway, just weird. But so apparently this thing was able to fly in 1964 on ions in the ionic wind. No crackbuck, but a practical visionary who in many areas has been far in front of his field. I don't know. There's no story here on why it did not do better, but weird. Weird. 1964 solar panels. That part gets me too. Honey Anna Amaya, it may be just my channel. Apparently I keep losing signal. I'm getting notifications from OBS that is losing internet. My internet has sucked the last couple days. I want to hear about the Viking rap battles. Oh, did you guys not hear? So basically they're saying that the Vikings used to have these word battles where they would insult each other, kind of even yo mama and yo. Anyway, hopefully you guys are back on now. I never heard of Elon Musk before 2015. Yeah, me neither. It was weird because everybody suddenly talked to him like he was like the king of the universe. And I'm like, what? Who is that guy? No, I'm on Wi-Fi. But I've been on Wi-Fi for a year. Haven't had this problem before. And it's not just the streaming. I'm losing my internet. Like, I'm trying to load stuff and it's not loading. Tesla cars appeared quite suddenly. Yeah, I was shocked. I'd never heard of Elon Musk. I had not heard of Tesla. And I had not heard of their cars. And I was actually thinking that it was some kind of startup thing. Well, they already had cars out. I was totally confused. Right. All right, this one's an interesting one. I know it's not an Emmy for a lot of people, but sriracha hot sauce. For me, that was sriracha, siracha sauce. It's kind of an older ME, but it was sriracha. And I've heard other people mention it, so I'm not crazy all by myself this time. So what's interesting was I saw this one in another channel, just kind of randomly commented on this, and it was somebody named Mandela Reality was commenting on the channel called Recycled Orange Juice, which is an ME channel, but he has other stuff too. That there's two histories for sriracha, and one history says it was invented in sriracha, And the other history is that it was invented in sriracha. And I just think it's really weird because a lot of us do remember it being sriracha at one point, and now it's sriracha. So this storyline kind of mirrors the ME. An origin history of sriracha is debated. And one report was produced by a Thai woman in the town of Sriracha, and then here it's going or sriracha. So it could be either. But this makes it totally plausible that maybe it got named sriracha, or it could be sriracha. Okay. Another report has it the sauce originated in the town of Sriracha. Anyway, so my point, what I'm trying to make is that there's two versions here. It could be sriracha or sriracha. And apparently in this timeline, the sriracha is the one that got picked. In my timeline, it was the sriracha that got picked. And this wiki kind of verifies that it could have easily been sriracha, which seems to be the case on some of the MEs. If you dig into the history, you can see where this timeline shows another path, but how your timeline could have happened. Now, you can't always see that, but it's interesting how often you can see that. Sriracha. Yeah, I remember it being sriracha, and this was before I even knew of the Emmy. It's an older one, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And suddenly it was sriracha, and I just assumed that I must have remembered wrong, but now I don't think so, especially because other people remember the same. I'm finding a lot of files I don't remember loading on my computer. I think I'm catching my alternate self in the act. You know, I'm finding a lot of people talking like that. They're just saying, I don't remember doing this. I don't remember that. I don't reading their old stuff and not remembering having written any of it. Routers can degrade signals with time, but it's possible that your static IP has been changed or your ISP changed license. You know, I'm not very techie, so that doesn't really mean anything. But all I can tell you is about the last 2-3 days, I keep losing internet signal. Not just when I'm streaming, but just surfing the net. When my ISP changed my IP due to a new license, my speed dropped too. Yeah, it's not just speed though. It keeps dropping me. I mean, it's just like ATT DirecTV, so it's a big channel. I mean, it's a big company. Sriracha. Yeah, now it's sriracha with an extra R. Sriracha. Yeah, okay. So it is a pretty common one. Okay, so anyway, that one. The reason I just thought that was neat, though, was because you could see the divergence here, where it could have gone one way or the other. Alright, this is a classic ME evolution. Clouded leopards. Beautiful animals. These guys, I first heard of them about 4 or 5 years ago. Beautiful leopards. And after the ME came about, it was really closer to 3 or 4 years, because it wasn't that long before I learned of the ME. I suspected these little beasts were MEs. But basically what they said was that they were very rare, and there was a video of one that got caught like with one of those cameras, those motion cameras, and they were saying, oh, we have almost no video of these really rare animals because they're always slinking around late at night in the forests and nobody ever sees them, and there's hardly any of them left, and they're so rare and we don't know anything about them. And this video was really special because we had like no video of them. All right, that was just like maybe 3 years ago. Beautiful creatures. Well, now they're in zoos all over, and I'm sorry, but breeding programs do not move that fast. But apparently there's quite a number of zoos that have these guys now. Officially recorded as a species in 1821. It remains a mystery. Most of what we know about these cats comes from observing them in zoos. Nope, 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 nope. That's not how it was 3 years ago. So apparently there's a breeding program for quite some time. I think it was like 2000 or something. Granted, it was a little while ago, but it wasn't 1974 or 1940. It was not 1940. The last few times I went there, I was pretty shocked to see snow leopards there, because when I first heard of snow leopards, probably in the 2000s no, I think it was later than that. Well, maybe later 2000s I first heard of them. They said there was only a few in the wild and nothing was known about them, and they hardly had any video of them, and there was like one video where they had some decent video of them, and that was it. And then later they had this thing where they tagged 2 of them, and that was all they had. And then I go to the zoo and there's a freaking snow leopard at the zoo, and I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. I was shocked because they didn't know anything about them. They didn't have any of them, and suddenly there's one in the zoo. Well, the same thing is now happening with these clouded leopards. They're suddenly in the zoo. And the breeding program, I think it was like 2000 or something. Since 2000, they've had a breeding program now. So, see, they're all over. San Diego has them, but a bunch of other zoos have them also. Beautiful animals, but giant Emmy for me. Ray Strickland, welcome. Bavar, welcome. Crazy World of Normal Helen, welcome, welcome. PG2424, also welcome. I think that's everybody that's come in. Gaynor Slater, welcome. Clyde Ewing. Got some late people coming in. All right, let's see. Here we go. Now this one's from Adam Left Fence. I did see these a while back. Looks like they've kind of developed since I last saw them. Lithopedions. The story's been developing for a while. Basically, it's if a woman has a child, she's pregnant and she's carrying an embryo and it dies. Apparently now sometimes if it's too big, and they can't. In my old timeline, it would just get ejected or reabsorbed, one or the other. But they started saying that sometimes they'll just calcify in there. Maybe that was like 5 or 6 years ago. But it used to be just kind of a ball. Even then, it was, I just started hearing about it like 3-4 years ago. Maybe even less recent, more recent than that. But now they're starting to look more like babies, like calcified babies. So you start to see images where it's baby shaped. It used to be just like a ball, but now you're seeing stuff like this. And it caught the attention of Adam Leffence, who was also mentioning it. See, now they're not looking like a calcified circular blob anymore. The only ones I used to see was more like this, just a circle. So these are apparently, the calcifying of animals seems to be a big thing. I covered that lake that calcifies them. Anyway, this is just creepy stuff developing, more creepy stuff. Oops, that's something else. So anyways, just getting weirder. All right, here's another one. Other people have mentioned the Salem witch trials. Nobody got burned at the stake anymore. Now you were just drowned. On my timeline, you were burned at the stake. It was almost all of the witches. Sometimes you were tested via water trials, and a few of them would drown that way before they got burned at the stake. But the standard go-to was to get burned at the stake. In this timeline, like, none of them got burned at the stake. And that's a little bit older than me, like 6 months ago or something. They were talking about that. So what I heard now is apparently they had these werewolf witch trials. Before the Salem witch trials, they were accusing everybody of being werewolves, and they would burn those. So there was, this was in Europe. So they had the werewolf witch trials. All right, let me see if I can find it. The Salem witch trials of 1692 remain among the most famous episodes in all of American history, but in Europe, hundreds of years prior, similar events took place, this time involving persons accused of lycanthropy or shape-shifting into werewolves. Apparently, they killed a lot of people by burning them at the stake. It was a pretty long-running thing. They tried to really burn them good because I guess they were afraid of them or something. Anyways, I'm kind of spacing out here, but sometimes they dismembered them and burned them. Just creepy stuff. And apparently this was a pretty long-running thing. People were just claiming to have seen werewolves everywhere, and everybody was getting accused. I have never heard of that until like 3 days ago or something. I'm a pagan, and witches call that period the burning time. Yeah, you know, I'll check again, but last I checked, and that was a big ME that was going around. They were saying that nobody was burned. Which Salem witches were burned? Let's see. They're calling them executed. Were witches burned at the stake? Myth number 1, the convicted witches were burned. All right, let's see. Contrary to popular belief, none of the condemned were burned at the stake. In accordance with English law, were hung gallows hill to die by hanging. Die by hanging. Dang, the last I checked it was drownings. The myth of burnings. So keep an eye on this story is all I'm saying. I'm not sure how much you heard. It looks like OBS Studio was disconnected for a while also. Alright, so got that one. Alright, this one, I don't know if it's me. I don't know if I'm crazy. But the rovers on Mars. I really remember there being 2 rovers on Mars. The 2 rovers were run via solar power. They were originally only supposed to run for like 6 months, but somehow they just kept running and running and running. The story originally was that they thought that the dust would cover the solar panels and they would stop, they would run out of power, but somehow the solar panels were getting cleaned off by wind and stuff, so they just kept running. And I don't know when the heck, well, let's go over rovers on Mars. Those are the 2 that I remember. Let's see. Okay. So I'm pretty sure it had to be these 2 then. Put on there 2003. I don't remember it being that far back. It could have been. I'm a little suspicious. But anyway, those 2, Spirit and Opportunity, are the 2 solar-powered ones. I have no idea when. I've heard about it maybe the last few months, Curiosity. I do not remember when they put that on there. Supposedly it was in 2011. But I was confusing it with these others, but these other 2 are the solar-powered ones. Curiosity is nuclear-powered, and it has a laser that it can shoot for 30 feet. And it weighs like, was it like a ton or something? I do not remember that launching or getting on the planet at all. I do not remember there being a nuclear-powered rover. And weirdly, you actually have to really look. I've just seen it mentioned on TV recently. You really have to look to see that it is nuclear powered. Car-sized rover designed by blah, blah, blah. Curiosity's 2-year mission was extended indefinitely. See if I can get the okay, there's its Curiosity is powered by a radioisotope thermoelectric generator. So some places are saying it's like the successful Viking 1 and Viking 2 Mars landers in 1976. I do not remember those being they are, wow, so Viking 1 and Viking 2 was also nuclear? Generators that produce electricity from the decay of radioactive isotopes, such as plutonium. Anyway, so Viking 1 and 2, which didn't exist in my timeline. Anyway, and so the other thing cool is it can shoot a laser like 30 feet and nuke stuff. So it doesn't have to go right up and like dig a little hole and like grab. It doesn't have to, it could just sit there and shoot its laser, and then it looks at the smoke out that of the burnt thing and determines chemistry that way. So I thought it was really neat. I sure as heck have not heard of it before, having that capability. I actually don't ever remember seeing this thing with all these extra wheels either. Curiosity rover nuclear battery. Can't believe the Vikings were supposed to have that. Those are old. I do not recognize this thing. Right. Actually, I don't even recognize that one. I wonder what the Opportunity rover looks like now. So many wheels, and it's a lot bigger. Yeah, it was just a tinier little thing before. Yeah, anyway, these have changed a lot. But they're cool. They can shoot lasers now. All right. The other thing is this one. LIDAR. I started hearing about that about 4 years ago. I thought it was a new thing at the time. They started talking about using LIDAR like on the Egyptian plains. Surveying method that measures the distance by targeting to a target by illuminating the target with pulsed laser light and measuring the reflected pulses with a sensor. Differences in laser return times and wavelengths can then be used to make a digital 3D representations of the target. So I thought it was a new thing. And although it did come out right about the same time that a lot of these other MEs came out, a new thing is a new thing, right? Well, it turns out we've had LIDAR since the 1970s. LIDAR originated in the early 1960s. Shortly after the invention of the laser, they were talking about it becoming more popular in the 70s, I think, or something. I'd hear it saying it's early 60s. I wrote down 70s. I'm not sure where I got that from. I don't know if... let's see. Interpretation of LIDAR as an acronym came later, beginning in 1970. Okay, that's where I got it from then. Anyways, I had never heard that term until the last 3-4 years. So I'm really suspicious of LIDAR. It's pretty popular right now, though. Alright, so I have one other one. Do I have these last two done? Oh, yeah, I still have those. Alright, let me just see what you guys are up to over here. Black clouds are not normal. Eva said she has never heard. I've never heard of pitch black clouds. No, I mean, they get dark gray when they're full of rain, but the clouds are weird now. It used to be if it was really going to rain, you'd have dark gray clouds. Otherwise, they were white. Now, you could have dark clouds mixed with white clouds. It could have them for days, no rain. A lot of clouds are kind of this stinky, dirty brown mauve color. Even on non-rain days, they'll be all mauve colored. That is one ME I noticed maybe a year before I heard of the ME. I looked off in the distance and I kept wondering why the clouds looked like they were dirty. Because it's not the gray color of rain clouds. It's a mauve color, like dirt. And I wondered if it was some smog thing. But, I lived in LA, one of the smoggiest regions in California, and no matter how smoggy it was, the clouds never turned to dirt. So I wasn't sure what that was, and I asked people about it. You notice the clouds, blah, blah, blah. They're all like, just didn't, I don't know, they just were clueless, didn't want to talk about it. But They didn't say they recognize it. They didn't say they didn't recognize it. It was like talking to a wall, basically. So those are a big Emmy for me. They're very brown now. That's just very much increased over the last few years. Yeah, pregnancy was 9 months, people. 9 months. They would guesstimate approximately when you probably became fertilized, and then they would count 9 months after that. I mean, they might be off a few days, but they could pretty much get it. So yeah, that 10 months thing, I did a video on that one though. Li-Fi. What the heck is Li-Fi? I don't even know what that is. Joshua Vencedor. Li-Fi. Li-Fi. Technology for wireless communication between devices using light to transmit data in high speed. In its present state, only LED camera lamps can be used. Huh. What is Li-Fi? Li-Fi claims to be 100 times faster than standard Wi-Fi. Huh. Interesting. Li-Fi runs invisible light waves. I don't know. Then it wouldn't be able to go through walls then. That would be a problem. You'd have to be line of sight. Your light bulb is your router. It uses common household LED light bulbs to enable data transfer. Oh, yeah, okay. You could put the light bulb in the room that you want to use. Huh. If somebody walks in between your computer and the light bulb, then do you lose signal? Huh. That is what is kind of interesting to me. They can hold proof in their hands and it doesn't get through. Creek Mary 1. Yeah. One of my coworkers, she remembers Arctica, and when I told her it's not on maps anymore, she just, she kind of freaked out and she never wanted to talk about it again. And I'm like, well, it's not just your bad memory. I try to say a lot of people remember it. She does not want anything to do with it. So, like these big changes, if they're big enough to freak people out, then they just don't want to, they don't want to even think about it. I thought, aha, she remembers Arctica, so for sure she's going to be interested. Nope. She want nothing to do with it. Several layers of clouds now, used to be only one. That's right. There was just the one. They would only be at one level at a time. You could have high clouds or low clouds, but you wouldn't have both. Anyone freaked out over who the youngest U.S. president was? Huh, Roosevelt. No, wait. 42. I'm not sure on that one. I I do remember thinking that Obama was like the youngest one, but not enough of an expert on that one. Honey Anna, Maya, see you later. Hopefully you can check out the replay later. PG2424. My best friend told me don't look up. There's the solution. There's a lot of Emmys on the ground, though, so it won't work. All right. All right, here's the weird one. I've been seeing this one for a while. I finally have to cover it. Okay. I thought I had this one saved. So, how to even start saying this? This here is a female hyena. You might be a little confused by some parts down here, but apparently the female hyenas in this timeline have parts that look just like man parts. They called pseudo, you know what? And when they give birth, the pups have to go through that thing. It's a modified female parts. It has to come all the way out that thing. And there's a story that some Japanese zoo was trying to mate their hyenas for a long time, and they turned out that they had made a mistake on which ones were male and which ones are female because they look so similar. So, anyways, I started hearing about this maybe a year ago, but it was only a little short thing at the time. It's a big, long thing now that they have. So I finally just had to cover it. It's getting too weird. Well, apparently they're not the only animals that have this. Now, I am sure that hyenas did not have that before. But they're not the only animals. Let's see. There was... Shoot, you know what? Somehow I had something up earlier and I'm not seeing it. Might have been in here, but there's, this is not the one. All right, let me see if I can find it this way. Here it is. This is the one I was looking at. Now, these other animals, weirdly, I can't find any pictures of them actually having it. But apparently squirrel monkeys have it. I've never heard of a friggin' squirrel monkey anyway. Cassowaries, those are a big Emmy. They used to be just plain boring birds. Now they're really bright with this big thing on their head. And so supposedly they have these pseudo, you know what? Cannot find a single image of the item in question. These funky lemurs supposedly have it. Can't find any images. I have no idea what a neotrogla is, or if that's even it, but an insect that lives in Brazilian caves. And a fossa. This is an Emmy anyways. We talked about this about a year ago, being an Emmy animal. Apparently they have these pseudo you-know-whats. Fossa will eventually grow out of theirs. But anyways, no, I can't find I can't find any images of theirs. Binturong, this one I've just covered maybe a few months ago as being an ME. They have it, can't find any images. European mole, couldn't find any images. Spider monkey, couldn't find images. This is a weird image though. I don't remember any monkeys having legs this long. It looks like a human in a monkey suit. Do not remember any of them having this long legs. They used to be spider monkeys because they had long spidery arms. Now they have long spidery legs as well. Anyway, so this whole fake, you know what, pseudo thing, I guess is a big deal in this timeline. I haven't looked at binturongs in a while, and I just want to see what they look like these days. All right, they don't look too different from last time I looked. Weird looking guys. Cute. So I guess I was thinking they'd get some colors or something, but maybe they're just going to be... Some of these images, they look kind of bluish. Sometimes when you see these weird... like, it just looks like camera artifacts, but you'll see the same camera artifact on many different photos. Sometimes that means that they're going to get that color. That'll be cool if they turn blue. Look at this one. I wonder if they're going to turn like blue. Anyway, keep an eye on it. Too much camera artifacts making them look bluish. Although in this one they look really red. Look, another one, they look blue. The camera is not usually that stupid. Alright, anyways, okay, I've got 2 more, and then I think we'll come in under 2 hours this time. Oh. Alright, this one is from Bob Robertson again. Now, about 5 years ago, this was just a theory that there could be methane under lakes, and the methane could release and kill people. Just a theory, but in this timeline, it's a fact. 1986, a massive natural release of CO2 gas from a pocket of magma, which caused the deaths of 1,700 people and 3,500 livestock. Lake Nyos. It was the first known large-scale asphyxiation caused by a natural event. In 86, it was not back that far. So apparently there's 3 of these lakes now, all full of. It's not even. I remember methane, but they're saying CO2 gets released. I don't remember any of them having CO2. So apparently these lakes now, they put these giant pipes into the lake to help the CO2 get out, so that they won't have a giant CO2 release later. And it's kind of a thing in this timeline that certain lakes, you got to put pipes in there so that they don't kill everybody around them. So that one's a Bob Robertson one. All right. Now the last one, I saved this one because, let's see if I can find this one. This is my ME for the week. This one makes me laugh, and it has actually changed a bunch since I looked it up a couple days ago. But the video is still here, at least. I was actually chortling about this all week. Looks like I lost my internet signal right before my favorite ME. Oh, okay, that came up. So hopefully there's not too much buffering on your end. All right. It looks like it's recovered. All right, here it is. This is a turtle. Turtles aren't slow anymore. This is the ME of the week. Turtles are not slow. He starts off slow. He thinks about being slow. I think I would probably give out a little scream because turtles are supposed to be slow, but they're not in this timeline. They're fast. Let's just see that guy running again. He skitters like a friggin'... Anyway, turtles aren't slow in this timeline. When I was looking it up, like a few days ago, you could type in turtle slow myth, and it was everywhere. For a while, if I looked up turtle slow myth, everywhere is saying, oh, it's just a myth. And it's only tortoises that are slow. And tortoises are slow because they're really big and heavy. Turtles aren't slow. Now, in my timeline, turtles were slow. They'd said because they didn't need to be fast, so they would conserve energy because they have their own shell, and so they would just go in their shell and be safe, so they didn't need to be fast. And then now I'm seeing these videos of these fast turtles, and they were saying a few days ago, it's just a myth that turtles are slow. Now I'm not finding that myth thing as much. And now you can find the explanations of why turtles are slow again. So I don't know what's going on with turtles. It hasn't been decided if they're going to be slow or fast. But there's definitely a lot of images of them cruising now, and they didn't do that in my old timeline. Now this turtle thing comes from that channel, Recycled Orange Juice is the channel name. And he had an image of a little turtle running on a treadmill. Actually, let me see if I can find that one. There, I think this one. Turtle running on a treadmill. And he had found this one also. This is his. Now, God, that one has a lot of editing. That's really irritating. Let's try this one. Now, what I wasn't sure about on this one was if they had just speeded up the video, because you don't have any context. The other one that I found, you can see the people walking. So I was suspicious of it. But you can see this guy up here walking, and he seems like he's walking at the same rate the whole time. These feet seem like they're moving at the same rate. So this turtle is really, if this is legit, he's really cruising here. So in my old timeline, they would just drag along. They couldn't like lift their whole shell up and haul like that. So that's what's changed. Anyway, so that is my ME. I just thought it was really funny because, you know, we've got bats that aren't blind, and lemmings don't jump off of cliffs or follow each other anymore, and skunks don't have one single stripe anymore, and now we've got turtles are not slow. So basically, any stereotype that you have of any animal is probably going to be wrong, although sloths are still slow. But other than that, I don't know what else is holding up. So I just thought that was funny. I'm actually kind of disappointed because a few days ago there was everywhere the myth that turtles are slow was everywhere. So it was even more funny. But now there's a bunch of websites back saying that excuses for why they're slow. So I don't know what's going on with that. So yeah, but that was Recycled Orange Juice gets credit for that. He found that, I mean, he didn't really look into it, but he found that video of the turtle on the treadmill, so he gets total brownie points for that. Yeah, there was hermaphrodite before, but not the pseudo genitalia before for me. Not at all. And they're so realistic that they actually really look like they really are males. And you know, right now you can only see the hyena. Now, when I first saw the hyena, they were small. You would they kind of look like it, but if they were next to a male, you wouldn't be confused. But now they're really close to a male's. Did the Taj Mahal once have a golden dome? I remember a golden dome. And a bunch of like blue coloring and stuff. And the Taj was way bigger. It was like these blue little ornate little bits in it and stuff. It's changed a lot. That monkey creeped me out. Yeah, he looks like a dude in a monkey suit now. Loads of new flowers. Yeah, I haven't even really tried that hard to do the flowers because there's so many. The insects, there's so many now. I found an old book describing the golden domes of the Taj Mahal, and now it is white. Never was gold. Yeah. That's interesting. So, residual. That's why it's a tortoise in the hair. I don't care. Turtles were slow in my timeline. They couldn't get up on they couldn't lift their own shell up. They just drag it along. That was for me. But, you know, alligators didn't used to be able to lift their whole body up. They were slow on land. They just drag along. Now they really skitter along. You know, I've had turtles, not me personally, but I've taken care of turtles. Friends have had turtles. I've run into turtles out in the desert. Never once did any move fast, ever. Dang it keeps jumping. They found 10,000 ancient artifacts, including gold pottery in Lake Titicaca. Interesting. Yeah, they're just finding stuff all over now. Underground, anywhere hidden. Any excuse for it to be hidden. Washed up, whatever. They're just finding everything. I think most of that stuff just wasn't there before. I mean, if they had LIDAR since 1970, 1960, they should have found all this stuff long ago. I see no survival advantage to a pseudo you-know-what. Yeah, and they have to push the babies out of that thing. Can you imagine trying to shoot a baby through that tube? It's just ridiculous. Even our turtle races were slow. Yep, there were no fast turtles. They couldn't even lift their whole body up. They would just drag along, just like the alligators used to. But now they lift their whole body and skitter along. It's amazing. Well, anyways, 1:50. I'm real sleepy. We used to catch alligator snapping turtles. They could take your finger off, but they wouldn't run fast. Exactly. None of the turtles could lift their shells off the ground, and that's what you had to do to move quickly. They couldn't do it back then. But, you know, stuff's stronger in this timeline, so. So anyways, looks like I'm coming down the home stretch here, so I'm going to sign off, try to get some sleep, see if I can kick the rest of this flu down. So anyway, that's my ME for this week. The green blood is a close second, but I've kind of covered that last week a little bit, although not that exact particular issue of the sulfur. So, but the thing I've been chuckling about for days now is the fast turtles, since that's another, you know, it's just one of those pillars of fact that I had when I was a child. Another one of those is gone by the wayside. Anyway, this is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline. Thank you, everybody, for coming.